The film begins in a prehistoric open landscape during the dawn of man. A tribe of hominins is trying to survive in this hostile world. They are drinking water in their water hole when a rival tribe appears and drives them away from it. Now, without their source of water, they cower in caves as wildlife scours the region and struggle against hunger and thirst. In the morning, they find an alien monolith has appeared in their midst. Terrified, they surround it, wondering if it's hostile or not. In their confusion, they manage to touch it and are mesmerized by it. This time, when they go out to scour for resources, one of them, inspired by the monolith, learns how to use a bone as a weapon. Soon, the entire tribe learns it, and they manage to hunt for food, their first act of violence. Now, with their stomachs filled and their hands armed, they return to drive their rivals away with it. They kill the leader of the rival tribe and claim victory. From this small tool, we move millions of years later, when humanity has become capable of moving into outer space. Dr. Haywood Floyd, chairman of the United States National Council of Astronautics, is traveling to Clavius Base, an American lunar outpost, on a Pan-American plane. During the plane ride, they experience zero gravity, and air hostesses walk wearing grip shoes. However, they have to make a stopover at Space Station 5, and the pilots expertly manage to dock it inside the rotating station. Once inside, he asks the receptionist about Mr. Miller of station security, who appears just as he asks about him. The two have to pass through a voice print identification before proceeding towards the lobby, where Haywood has about an hour and 10 minutes to spare. Haywood sends Miller ahead to the restaurant while he calls his family. The station has a futuristic video calling system that experiences zero delays. His daughter picks up the phone while Haywood's wife is out shopping. She asks if Haywood will visit her birthday party tomorrow, but Haywood is on a mission. He tells her to inform her mother that Haywood called and will call again. When he comes out of the booth, he spots Elena, an old acquaintance, and goes to meet her. She introduces him to her friends, who are Russian scientists. They ask Haywood to sit for a brief chat. Elena explains that she and the scientists have spent 3 months calibrating a new antenna at Chalinko, a Soviet lunar base on the Earth's moon. When he mentions the Clavius base, Dr. Andrei Smyslov immediately shows his concern that the Clavius seems to be unresponsive, which has been going on for the past 10 days. Furthermore, 2 days ago, one of Chalinko's rocket buses was even denied an emergency landing, which violates the IAS convention. Smyslov believes that there is an epidemic at the base, of unknown origin, but Haywood simply replies that he's not at liberty to discuss anything. He resumes his journey to Clavius. Along the way, he falls asleep when an air hostess appears to offer him lunch, and the air hostess goes to give the pilots their lunch. She's able to walk on the ceiling thanks to her grip shoes. When they reach the moon, the captain appears to greet him. They are allowed to land at Clavius, which is full of regular people engaged in their tasks with no sight of an epidemic. At Clavius, Haywood is to address a meeting of personnel. He congratulates them on their discovery, which is one of the most significant in the history of science. He admits that there are some people against it, causing them to make their discovery a secret, and admits that they are responsible for the rumor about the epidemic. He stresses the need for secrecy regarding their newest discovery. He then discusses his mission, which is to investigate a recently found artifact, a monolith buried 4 million years ago near the lunar crater Tycho. His next mission is to recommend when and how the news should be announced to the public based on the facts. He also asks them to submit written proof of their oath of secrecy. He then goes to visit the crater Tycho with a group of scientists. On the way, the scientists show Haywood the scans they've taken of the crater, revealing that at first they assumed it was a magnetic rock, but scans revealed otherwise, and they believed that the monolith was deliberately buried. They manage a safe landing at the crater. As Haywood and others examine the object and take photographs, it emits a high-powered radio signal. The scene then shifts to 18 months later. The American spacecraft Discovery 1 is bound for Jupiter. Mission pilots and scientists Dr. Dave Bowman and Dr. Frank Poole are on board, along with 3 other scientists in suspended animation. Dave is performing his cardio exercises by treating the rotating spacecraft as a treadmill. With his exercise done, Dave sits to eat lunch with Frank. On their daily, timely broadcasts, they can watch a news channel. The reporter is interviewing Frank and Dave. The interviewer reveals that most of Discovery's operations are controlled by HAL, a HAL 9000 computer with a human-like personality. He questions them about their confidence in the hibernation technology, which was done to conserve their food and oxygen supplies. Only the staff essential to maintaining the craft's functionality were allowed to be awake. Frank explains that in animation, you don't dream, and you only breathe once a minute, and the heart beats 3 times a minute. When the interviewer interviews Hal, Hal displays full confidence in his ability, saying no 9000 series computer has ever made a mistake. The interviewer is surprised at Hal's pride and wonders if he's capable of having genuine human emotions. Afterward, Frank receives a transmission from his parents, who wish him a happy birthday and express how grateful they are for having such an accomplished son. After the transmission is over, Hal also wishes Frank a happy birthday. Afterward, Frank plays chess with Hal but easily loses. When Frank goes to sleep, Dave takes a tour of the craft, drawing sketches of his colleagues and ensuring everything is running smoothly. Hal asks to see his sketches and comments that Dave is improving. He then suddenly asks a personal question from Dave, questioning if he's having second thoughts about the mission. Hal believes there are some suspicious details about the mission, but Dave is surprised by his questions. Hal mentions the rumor of the monolith being dug up on the moon before they left and believes it is related to their mission, since their mission was also kept under tight security. When Dave grows suspicious about Hal, Hal suddenly reports the imminent failure of an antenna control device in 72 hours. Dave asks for a hard copy of the report to discuss it with Frank and Mission Control. They perform further diagnostics of the spacecraft and receive a message from Mission Control, acknowledging their message. They authorize retrieving it in an extravehicular activity, EVA pod, and Dave goes for the mission. Once in space, Dave performs a spacewalk to the antenna and retrieves the control device, but they're unable to find anything wrong with it. Hal is surprised by this and suggests reinstalling the device and letting it fail, so the problem can be verified. They contact Mission Control about their plan, and Mission Control advises the astronauts that the results from their backup 9000 computer indicate that Hal has made an error. When Dave questions Hal about this discrepancy, Hal blames it on human error. Frank also questions Hal if there has ever been any precedent of the most minute computer error happening in the 9000 series, but Hal insists that the 9000 series is incapable of making errors. Concerned about Hal's behavior, Dave tells Frank to help him with the transmitter unit in his EVA pod, but his real intention is that they can talk in private without Hal overhearing. After turning off the system of the pod, they make sure that Hal cannot hear them before beginning their conversation. They both agree that despite the track record of the 9000 series, there's something odd about Hal. Though they agree to put back the device in the antenna to see whether it fails or not, they wonder what to do in case Hal proves to be dangerous and faulty, since they are stranded in space, and everything is under Hal's control. They agree to disconnect Hal if he is proven wrong. Meanwhile, Hal follows their conversation by lip reading. This time, Frank goes out to reinsert the control unit while Dave oversees. While Frank is floating away from his pod to replace the antenna unit, Hal takes control of the pod and attacks him, sending Frank tumbling away from the ship with a severed airline. Dave immediately rushes and takes another pod to rescue Frank, while Hal keeps track of Frank. Dave manages to catch up to Frank, but he's dead by that point. He decides to take his body back to the spacecraft. While he is outside, Hal turns off the life support functions of the crewmen in suspended animation, killing them. When Dave returns to the ship with Frank's body, Hal refuses to answer when Dave tells him to open the pod bay doors. When Hal does reply, however, he refuses to let Dave back in, stating that their plan to deactivate him jeopardizes the mission. Dave decides to enter through the ship's emergency airlock. Though Hal says without his helmet, Dave will find it very difficult. Dave releases Frank's body. Looking mournfully at his lost comrade, he proceeds to open the ship's emergency airlock with his remote manipulators. Lacking a helmet for his spacesuit, he positions his pod carefully so that when he jettisons the pod's door using its explosive bolts, he is propelled by the escaping air across the vacuum into Discovery's airlock. Dave holds his breath for the maneuver and can succeed. Once inside, Dave proceeds towards Hal's processor core, while Hal tries to talk him out of it. But Dave refuses to talk to him anymore, just as Hal once refused to talk to him. Despite Hal assuring him that he's back to normal, Dave begins disconnecting most of Hal's circuits, ignoring Hal's pleas to stop. When most of Hal's circuits are disconnected, Hal's intelligence regresses to the most basic level, and at this point Dave responds to him, asking him to sing the first song he heard from his inventor. When he is finished, a pre-recorded video by Haywood plays, which was intended to be played when the crew has reached Jupiter, revealing that the mission's actual objective is to investigate the radio signal sent from the monolith to Jupiter. Now alone, Dave continues the journey toward Jupiter. At Jupiter, Dave finds a third, much larger monolith orbiting the planet. He leaves Discovery in an EVA pod to investigate. However, he is pulled into a vortex of colored light and observes bizarre astronomical phenomena and strange landscapes of unusual colors as he passes by, perhaps reaching higher planes of existence. Fourth-dimensional geometry flashes before his eyes. Colors and landscapes invert, and Dave has visions of alien geography. Though shaken, he finally finds himself in a large neoclassical bedroom inside his pod. We suddenly see why Dave is so shaken, as there stands an older version of himself. But then he becomes this older version, first standing in the bedroom, middle-aged and still in his spacesuit, but his pod has disappeared. When Dave explores the place, he's shocked to see his reflection. He hears a noise in the bedroom, where an even older Dave is eating dinner and dressed in leisure attire. When this older Dave looks behind, the other Dave becomes this Dave. He goes to investigate the noise in his bathroom, but finding nothing, resumes his dinner. However, Dave drops his glass. When he bends down to pick it up, discovers an even older version of himself lying in bed. When their eyes meet, the older Dave becomes the oldest Dave. The monolith appears at the foot of the bed, and as Dave reaches for it, he is transformed into a fetus, as though reborn, enclosed in a transparent orb of light floating in space above the Earth. Dave has been elevated to a higher level of being that represents the next stage of human evolution by the aliens who invented the monolith. He is destined to lead humanity towards the creation of a new heaven on Earth, and the movie ends.